right. Another question? Anyone? Here's someone.
Hi. I like to tell my students that there's a little bit of populist in every individual. And the previous panel said that we're becoming much more urban and much more suburban. So I want to ask you, do you think that this growing love of Texas food and growing love of Texas music and festivals all over the state all year long sort of invigorates a little bit of that populism in each one of us?
I think I've always thought it was interesting, particularly over the years since the progressive country music started back in the 70s, that every Texan I've known, and of course most of them were born or grew up in cities, some of them very large cities. But I think every Texan has in the back of his mind this fantasy that he grew up in in a tiny town and out on the farm. And that's very much, like you say, it's very much a culture thing. I mean, it's sort of the image of the culture that we have fashioned for ourselves, and I've always found that an interesting phenomenon.
Well, what I see that connects with the farm is a lot of farmers markets popping up all over. I mean, I think even more than ever. It's almost like back to 1972 or something. So that's I remember when I was working with the Underground Press, and people would drive to San Antonio to the farmers market at 3 o'clock in the morning or something, and all these people, farmers, farmers, you know, they're out there with trucks, and you can buy stuff right off the pickup truck. And people would get together like a whole neighborhood and have an order, and we'd have a big old truck drive over there and pick it all up and bring it back and distribute it in our neighborhood. And I remember the first food co-op that I knew of way back then was the Milo Minder Binder Food Co-op. And that was just somebody selling food out of their living room. And then it took off from there. But I think that it kind of went down for a while, but then it's like resurged.
I'd say in answer to that too, I think any of these cultural events that do bring us all together can only be good. One thing I used to do was I would volunteer every time there was an election. I would go work at the polls, and and that was the most populist thing I think I've ever done, because you would go in there. There would be people from every walk of life, every political bent, and we were all working together very hard to get something done. And when it was all over, we went back our separate ways. But we all got to meet each other and work together. And anything, these festivals and entertainment things are good too, but working together is critical, I think, to spreading your culture.
No, I was just going to add that it should be noted that Jim Hightower was the one that tipped Farm Aid off about the whole farmers markets trend that hadn't developed, but he saw it coming, and he called up and he said, "You really got to fund this farmers market in Cambridge, Massachusetts, right?" And everybody's talking supply management and all these policy things, and Jim was saying, you know, this is where it's going to be happening, and so we did, of course, because we would obey. Sages such as you, but anyway, so we've been working with farmers markets since way back in '86.
We've got time for one or maybe two more questions.
Okay, well, you're talking about getting together at cultural events, and one of Hightower's biggest thing always has been how power uses divisive tactics to keep us apart. And Tom, one of your songs that I've always loved is Teenage Immigrant Welfare Mothers on Drugs, who are the cause of all our problems. That's a comment.
We always say about that is, don't fix the problem, fix the blame,
God, I love it.
Anyone else have a comment for that?
Alan, I wanted to ask you, I'm not a photographer, I'm a studio artist, a painter, but I'm interested in if you see a relationship between populist or populism or the style of populist type photography, documentary photography, and maybe contemporary photography, if there's some kind of a relationship happening in terms of those ways of working.
In photography, not art.
Photography.
Photography as opposed to painting. Well, there are groups. You know, the good old Soros Foundation. They fund a lot of things. I get calls from Manchester, England. Emails, I should say. The power of the internet. People will email me, students, to ask me questions. Happens all the time. People are very interested. The Farm Security Administration photography, the impact of it has stayed strong over the decades. And so I'm happy about that. Yeah, I do get a lot of calls. And of course, there's no end to the need for advocacy for a whole lot of groups. So what I was trying to point out in my little history of economics of aesthetics is that that's the power that pushes young people away from documentary style photography, because if you want to be seen in galleries, well, alienation, and also pictures that mean anything to anyone, but they don't really mean anything at all. You know, it's kind of like a one big ink blot up there. Strange, odd moments, that's what some of the people were you know, being shown in the Museum of Modern Art for. But I still get some young people that come by and want to talk and learn and do the things that Russell Lee did. It's not as simple as one might think, and I think that's the great thing about everybody getting out there and planting lettuce in the backyard, is because you find out, golly, you know, it's fun, but it's work. And when you're planting some crops in the Austin Community Gardens and they can't get space quick enough to suit everyone that wants to do it, you do learn all the effort and technique that's necessary. And I think that's helpful for farmers. It makes people appreciate them more. And when I teach photography to people, they always say, gosh darn, there's more to this than I thought. And I said, that's right.
Any last comments? Thank you, Alan. Any?
I was just thinking, this is sort of reminds me of the old Presbyterian church I came to. Just one person on the front row. It's kind of makes you want to break into a gospel song. You know?
It does. Well, folks, I want to thank all of y'all for being here. Beverly, I believe, has a few words, but I want to thank this panel again, and thank you, Jim. Thank you all for being here today.